Before I tell you all a little bit about myself, what my role is, and a little bit more about my career aspiration, just want to give a shout out to everyone that is on this call. I think it's really easy during times like this whole pandemic, to kind of just kick your feet up and relax, binge watch every new episode of Ozark and all that good stuff. But I think this is really an important time to better yourself and put yourself in a better position to land that internship you're seeking, that job you want to land, or that grad school you're looking to attend. Use resources like Christina mentioned. UConn was great when I was there. I probably bugged a lot of people at the Career Center because I was there too much, getting my resume critiqued, doing mock interviews, and cover letter critiques. So really take advantage of these times, doing something like this and just taking an hour out of your day. Hopefully I'm not too boring, but learning from industry professionals and things that you're passionate about, whether it be sports or whether it be sales. This is a great time to network virtually, reach out to people on LinkedIn you're curious about, and really take it from there. But I had to throw that out there and obviously give a plug to my friends at the Career Center. So thank you guys for everything you did for me.
Thank you, Aaron. So tell us, how did you break into the sports industry world while pursuing your passion in sales?
Sure. Yeah, I'll dive right in. I'll start all the way from the beginning. So back in high school, I actually was very keen on being a chemical engineer. I was doing very well in math and doing very well in my AP science courses. So I thought that was a route that I wanted to take. My family ended up going on a cruise, and on that cruise, we played street hockey, or I guess deck hockey, I guess it would be in that case, on a cruise ship. And luckily, it was a cruise ship before the whole coronavirus thing, so I was safe. But we were on that, and I had so much fun playing hockey. I can't skate at all. My girlfriend's dad is a prep school hockey coach, so I'm still hiding that from him that I can't skate, but grew up playing street hockey a lot. So when I came back from that cruise, I was like, how fun would it be to get a bunch of my friends together and play street hockey? So that started really, really small. We had maybe 8 to 10 people the first time, continued to grow week over week. By the end of that summer, we had over 80 to 100 members in the league. We had 8 teams. We had a whole big draft at my house. We fundraised and bought goals, equipment, and everything along those lines. And I guess technically I was working, but it was all just out of the goodness of my heart and how much fun I had, playing sports with my friends and getting people together. And I was like, wow, this is really something I'm passionate about. I wonder if I can make a career out of this. Always was a huge sports fan, as I'm sure a lot of you are, but didn't really know how realistic or what a career in sports even looked like. So I started doing some research on how to get into the sport industry. Didn't know how I wanted to break in, but just kind of see what careers were out there. So I looked at a few different schools, and luckily enough, I ended up choosing UConn, which was one of the best decisions I ever made. At UConn, you're not guaranteed admitted into the sport management department. It's something you apply into at the end of your sophomore year. So I knew I was going to have a challenge, but something I was eager to get after. And once I visited the campus, I remember sitting in Gamble Pavilion and hearing people talk about UConn, just looking around at all the banners. And I was like, wow, this is definitely where I want to be. And after hearing Dr. Burton speak a little bit, I was like, wow, this is the program I want to be a part of, and this is the school I want to attend. So I was lucky enough to get accepted to UConn. Got on campus freshman year. I lived in North. I believe the building was Litchfield. I'm not sure if that still exists. I'm not that old, but I feel like it probably does. So I was there freshman year. I knew right away I wanted to make an impact if I wanted to get into the sport management program. Obviously, I knew a big part of that was going to be my grades, so making sure I had a really high GPA, but I also wanted to get as involved as possible and gain as much experience to put myself in the best position to get a part of that program. So I quickly got involved with the Sport Business Association. So shout out any SBA members that are on the call. So I attended that all the time my freshman year, trying to get as involved as possible, going on lots of trips, going to all the guest speaker meetings, and just trying to be a sponge and take in what different aspects of the industry entail. So from there, then later in my freshman year, I started working in the game day operations department. So I was working a lot of different UConn athletic events, from field hockey to basketball to lacrosse, and just seeing what the event side of the business entailed. I also got involved on the e-board of the Sport Business Association, where I was accepted as vice president, which I started that role in my sophomore year. Sophomore year, I made the big switch from north to northwest. So big improvement in the dining hall, but not a huge difference location-wise. So I was in Northwest my sophomore year. And then again, I was trying to gain more experience by being VP of the SBA. That allowed me a lot of insight to what involved to be in a leadership position. And obviously a club that's very closely aligned with the sport management department. My second half of my sophomore year was right around application time. I also started working for the athletic marketing department under Stephen Hanjack. So I was the guy chucking T-shirts in the upper deck of the XL Center, and tearing my rotator cuff, and running the subway shuffle, and all those fun things that go on at the UConn athletic events. So got some additional exposure, and then was lucky enough to be accepted into the sport management department at the end of my sophomore year, and started that my junior year. And I also, at the same time, took over as president of the Sport Business Association. So I was working hand in hand with Dr. Burton, Dr. Cooper at the time, as well as my e-board members on the SBA. From there, in your junior year of sport management, got to learn a ton from my professors and a ton from my peers. Made some of my closest friends to this day that I'm still in touch with within that program. I was really tight-knit family, and I think the sport management department does a great job of not only combining classroom experience, but allowing you to also apply those with real-life scenarios. And come end of junior year was the time where I was starting to search for internships. So at that time, I was using Teamwork Online, which is a great resource for those that are looking to break into the sport industry. I was just trying to look at different opportunities. Came across a position with the Mets. I'm not sure if you can see in the background there. I have some Phillies logos on the back. I do have some UConn gear that I put up just for you guys, but I am a diehard Phillies fan, so definitely did not ever picture myself working for the Mets, but I saw a ticket sales and services internship opportunity. I said, might as well throw my hat in the ring. I'd made a brief connection with, at the time, was their director of season ticket account services, Michelle Price, who spoke to the SBA. So I said, hey, I applied to this position. Any advice, let me know. She connected me to the recruiting manager. And from there, it was a pretty lengthy interview process. I was fortunate enough that they came one day to UConn and did some group interviews. So I got an opportunity to have a face-to-face interview. And then eventually I got invited to a big group interview where there was like 12 of us at Citi Field, people from all over the country, and then was fortunate enough to land that position. So that was my first ever experience with sales. I had no idea what sales was. I think there's a misnomer in the world, and I definitely fell victim of this as well, that sales is, they picture Wolf of Wall Street just trying to get every dime out of someone possible. They picture the sleazy car salesman that just wants to take everybody's money and doesn't really care about that. And once I got involved with the Mets, all the leadership team that they had in place, I was hooked, and I really fell in love with sales, building relationships, and really making it more of a consultative sales process where you're working with the client more hand in hand to see how you can potentially enhance their experience, opposed to just shoving product down their throat, for lack of a better term. So one thing I'll say, and one thing I hope you all take away from this, is always chase the people, not the logo. For me, if I didn't want to work for the Mets because I didn't like the Mets as a team, I would have missed out on one of the best opportunities I've ever had access to. And even outside of sports too, if you're looking to get into accounting and you solely want to work for PricewaterhouseCoopers or one of the top 4 accounting firms, that may be, you might just be the 25th accountant there. You might have the logo, but you might not be working for the right people necessarily. So always chase the people, not the logo, is something I definitely preach. But so within that internship, I got to do a majority of things. I got to do a little bit of, basically it was a combination of a group sales associate role. So what that looks like is I get to work with people that are now in my current role and make sure that their events run smoothly. So as an intern, I was working with high-level executives on the field, helping them execute their fan experience package of throwing out the first pitch. There was times where I was helping out with bark in the park and making sure the Rottweilers weren't running out to second base and were staying out on the warning track. So a wide varieties of helping out with our different fan experience packages and our theme day initiatives. And what was really cool about the internship as well, and now our internship that we currently have in place is solely this, is that I got a chance to sell. So I got a real life opportunity where I got to get on the phone and speak to Mets fans and prospects with the end goal of those phone calls looking to set a face-to-face appointment at the ballpark, which for the client entails a really cool VIP tour experience where they get to go out onto the field, inside the Mets dugout, see some areas of the ballpark that normal fan would never get to see. From a sales perspective, this gives us a great opportunity to meet with our clients, put a face to a name, and really let our personality show through, which obviously is going to make that sales conversation much easier and make the likelihood of a sale far more likely. So that was something that I got to experience with my internship. When I got back to campus, my senior year, someone had come into one of my class. Actually, you know what? It was the end of it was the second half of my junior year. And someone from the professional sales program came in and was telling us a little bit more. It might have been Bill Ryan. I'm not sure if it was Bill or if it was somebody else within the program, but nonetheless, they came in and they had said that we have this great opportunity to have a professional sales minor. One of the requirements is the marketing class that I was currently sitting in. So I was like, all right, check. And then they also said a sales internship. And I had a sales internship lined up for the summer at that point. So I was like, oh, great. I already have 2 out of the 4 necessary requirements. Why don't I inquire about this? So when I got back on campus, going into my senior year, I had lined up 1 class in the fall and 1 class in the spring to round out that professional sales minor. And that was when I knew after the internship, sales was something I wanted to do long term, whether I was going to go back full time with the Mets or whether I was going to explore other opportunities. This program gave me a really great opportunity to learn from other sales professionals in other industries. And at this point, I was really only familiar with sports sales. So that gave me some great insight there. It also gave me some real life experience. We did a number of live case studies where different people from our university partners would come in and actually we would do live sales role plays and things along those lines. So got to hone in my skills a little bit during that time as well. But at the end of the day, the people, again, chase the people, not the logo. I was hooked at the Mets. I saw the vision that the leadership team had in place, how much success had come from that program. And I knew that ultimately I wanted to start full-time in inside sales with the Mets post-graduation. But highly recommend for those of you that know not necessarily going to be sports, but definitely pursuing a career in sales, to take a look into that professional selling program. As that's a great asset that UConn has that, from my experience, not a lot of other universities have. So definitely something to look into. So starting with the Mets, I started full-time in inside sales in June of 2017. Inside sales is a 9 to 12 month program. Basically, it's an opportunity for you to really separate yourself from your peers, and those top people come that time frame that really separate themselves will have the opportunity to receive a promotion into the account executive level, whether it's in the group sales department where I fall, our new business development department, which focus mainly on selling season tickets, or our season ticket account services department, which focuses on servicing those season ticket accounts. So I had a little bit of a leg up going into this, knowing that I had the internship experience. A lot of these people were stepping foot as an employee at Citi Field for the very first time. However, that didn't necessarily pay off in my favor. When I first started, I was not. I expected to be right at the top of the leaderboard and on that promotion track. I actually started really, really slow. I think a big thing in sales that you'll find is that it's very mental, and it's really a lot about overcoming adversity. So they use the baseball cliche: if you get a hit 3 out of 10 times, you're a Hall of Famer. In sales, it's the same way. You're going to hear a lot more no's than yeses. And I think I was letting what other clients, whether it was a no, whether they were hanging up on me, or whether whatever the scenario was, I was letting it bother me. And as soon as I had that self-realization, I was really able to turn the corner, and I started letting my personality show through, which resonated with my clients, which resulted in a lot more face-to-face appointments. And once I was able to meet with clients in person, they saw how passionate I was and how I learned what was most important to them, was able to customize a package that ultimately made sense. And from there, I was able to skyrocket up the leaderboard and was able to receive a promotion into the group sales department in December of 2017. So around like 6 months or so, I was received a promotion to the account executive level. I've been in that role now for 2 years. The first year I was focused mainly on just the sales role, where my goal was to generate new business. That required me to reach out to nonprofit organizations, unions, first responders, businesses, youth baseball initiatives, schools, and kind of basically start from scratch. This is more likely than not someone that's never touched the Mets product before. And with those, we have a lot of different theme day initiatives or things that make logical sense for them, such as education days for schools, or union night for unions, or our nonprofit of the game program. So we purposely build those out to make those conversations a little bit easier. So I did that for the first year. The second year, I transitioned into a group services role. This was a need that was a vacancy that opened up, and my director and our executive director of ticket sales pulled me aside and they said, Aaron, we think this is a really good opportunity for you to grow both professionally as well as a leader, as this department doesn't really have a leader at this point in time. You've come through our inside sales program here. This is a great opportunity for you. So I made the switch into our group services department. And what that looks like is basically you'll have a book of business in which you're responsible for maintaining, growing, and upselling, as well as we also have a new business initiative associated with that as well. However, my main role is to maintain and grow that book of business that I oversee. So that's the current role that I am. What I'm most excited about is that I was admitted into our management and training program this past October. This is a very prestigious program that was on my radar all the way back from when I was an intern, and a big reason why I wanted to come back post-graduation is because I knew I had leadership aspirations, and that's where I ultimately wanted to go with my career. So within that program, I'm being trained to recruit, train, and develop future leaders of the sport industry. I've had the opportunity to lead floor-wide trainings. I've had the opportunity to go on recruiting trips to colleges, recruiting trips out to Washington, D.C., where the Washington Wizards and Capitals put on a sales workshop. I get to recruit college students, such as UConn students, hopefully get some of those people land some positions long-term with the Mets. But I think what's most exciting about this program, and basically the trajectory of where it would get me, the light at the end of the tunnel of this program would be a director of inside sales, in which I would be running my own sales team, hiring those individuals, training those individuals, and then basically developing them into salespeople. And then the end goal along down the line would be, ultimately for me, would be to be a chief revenue officer of one of the four major of a professional sports team in one of the four major sports leagues. So that's a kind of peek behind the curtain of what my trajectory hopefully will continue on. But I think for me, the biggest thing within the management training program, why I'm most excited about it, is the track record that it has. So over the last 2 years, we've placed 7 leaders from that program to go on to be inside sales directors. So this is something that a lot of other teams in the industry look to when they do have hiring availability for inside sales directors. Some people have gone on to be the director of inside sales with the Dodgers, Washington Wizards, San Jose Sharks, a couple internally with the Mets. So a really good track record there, and one that I'm excited to be a part of. So that's a little bit of, in a nutshell, a little bit more about myself, my career path. Does anybody have any questions regarding that? It can be a fun question about UConn. It can be something Mets related, sales related, whatever you got. I'm an open book.
Hi, Aaron. So I see one question that I don't know if you can see it. Just take a breath and get a drink there.
Yeah.
But one student asks, what strategies do you have for starting and maintaining a book of business?
Great question. So the biggest thing I would say for starting and maintaining a book of business would be a strategy in mind of how exactly you want to build out that book of business, what you're looking to, what areas of the industry you're looking to attack. So whether that's a B2B focus, whether that's mainly consumer focused, whether that's theme day initiatives. So that would kind of be my starting point to build that out. And ultimately, once you do build out that book of business, the biggest thing is retaining that. How can I make this show value to these clients that they're going to want to do this year over year over year? For me, I inherited a book of business. So in the new business role that I first started out in, I started out with $0, and my job was to get all the way up to $500,000. In the services role, I inherited a book of business from one of my peers that left the company. So I already had like a $1.3 million book of business that I was responsible for overseeing right away. And naturally, with that book of business, you're going to see fluctuations. So you're not going to, as much as I'd like to retain all of that, that just realistically isn't going to happen. So you're going to lose some book of business. But at the same light, you're bringing in new business throughout the year. So that's growing it. So it's kind of like building and maintaining at the same time.
Thanks. So you've been really good at the 20,000 foot level. I'd like you to go just a little bit lower in terms of more in the weeds, and tell us, what would a typical day look like now after you've gotten through all those promotions and experience elsewhere, which are incredibly valuable. But what does your day look like today? Not today with COVID-19, but a day that is normal when you're at the ballpark.
Yeah, great question. So yeah, unfortunately, usually my office every day is at Citi Field. Today I'm in my childhood bedroom that I haven't been in quite some time. So definitely a little bit different currently. But as far as a given day, once this pandemic has come and gone, we'd be coming into the office. Like I said, it's a beautiful ballpark. It's so fun coming in there every day. I think that's why I do what I do. Just walking into that stadium never fails to give me chills. But a given day for me, we'll just say it's a Tuesday. So a Tuesday, I would come in, I'd have a training prep meeting at 8:30. So I'd meet with a few of our leadership and a couple other members of our management training program. And we would build out what our training platform is going to look like for the following day. That meeting usually runs from say 8:30 to 9:30, something like that. Following that, on a Tuesday, we would have our group services meeting. So that would be the 6 individuals on the group service team and our director of group sales, Jake Winowich, would all get together in a room, kind of go over the state of state, where we're at, how we're pacing, what initiatives we're currently working on, what issues that we're facing, and kind of go over all those. That's usually about an hour or so meeting. From there, we have very structured days. Basically, we'll have a call block, so we'll have an hour and a half time frame where we're reaching out to our top accounts. Then we'll have a 15 or so minute period where I'm getting back to emails. I'm prospecting. I'm making sure everyone's for their event coming up next week. Everything's good to go. Hour or so for lunch. Afternoon, similar thing, a breakdown of call blocks, an admin period. And then on a given, the thing about sales is, that would be a given Tuesday. There could be days where I'm out of the office all day on meetings. I'm bouncing back and forth between my clients' offices in Manhattan. I'm out on I take the company car and I'm out on Long Island meeting with clients. If it's a game day, it's prepping for any of my clients that I have coming out that day, where I'm running a face-to-face meeting and comping my client a couple tickets to the game and sharing with them some more information. So I think that's what makes it fun. Every day is a little bit different, but that's kind of an insight of what a given day looks like.
Yeah, that's great. And so do you have to go to every game? And when you do, what do you do on a game day?
Yeah.
How is it different?
Great question. So I would say I probably work in a services role probably 80% of the game. So a good majority of the time, if the Mets are home, I am there. What I'm doing on those game days varies. So sometimes it's all hands on deck if we're having one of our giant parades or something along those lines, that I'm out there making sure that those events run smoothly. It could be a prospecting event where we invite a bunch of clients out, and I'm wining and dining clients, showing them different things that Citi Field has to offer, and hopefully looking to drive some revenue for the organization. There's game days where I have fan experience packages for myself. So one of my clients might be throwing out the first pitch, or might be in one of our hospitality spaces. So it's visiting them, making sure their event's going well. So on a given day, it could be a variety of things, but that's kind of an insight of what a game day looks like.
Cool. I see somebody put a question in the chat, so I'm going to read it. Bear with me if I stumble on it. Victoria says, as a psych major and a human development and family sciences major, along with a serious passion for sales and marketing, any recommendations, tips, or advice? A diehard baseball fan whose UConn application paper mentioned wanting to work for big league teams like the New York Yankees or Chelsea Football Club.
Cool.
And wait a minute, and a little league coach with a real passion for baseball.
That's awesome. Well, Victoria, congrats. That's really, really great. I love that. And I think a big reason why in my recruiting efforts, we reach out to the career services departments typically and not just go straight to sport management, is because we really recruit from the Met perspective a wide range of majors. If we solely looked at business students or sport management students, we'd look out on a slew of really qualified candidates. So that's why we really opened up to all majors. And within the walls of Citi Field, we have criminal justice majors, we have political science, communications, so accounting, business, sport management. So it is a wide range. As far as sales advice goes, I would say gain as much experience as you can. You can read all the books, you can do things like that, but really the best way to learn is actually living it. But as far as sales advice goes, I would say my two biggest piece of advice would be, one, be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Naturally, in a sales role, you're going to be put into situations where you haven't found yourself in before. You might feel uncomfortable or whatever that looks like. But once you can get over that fear, which is kind of what I alluded to when I started off really slow in my sales role out of college, you'll really see a ton of success. So just put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to fail. That would be a big one. And the other thing too would be just the ability to overcome adversity. With sales, there's going to be times where you feel on top of the world. There's going to be times you feel like you can't sell anything. You're just trying to stay even keeled. Sales is a roller coaster as much as you can. Just try and stay even keeled. I know there's a lot there. Did I miss anything else, Lisa, that she mentioned?
I can't think of anything. I don't think you did. I'm going to shift gears a tiny bit and ask you, I love that you said chase the people, not the logo, right? How long did it take you to actually learn that? Because that doesn't seem like that comes naturally to anybody. To Victoria's point earlier, or I'm a diehard X fan of so-and-so. How do you chase the people? How do you get to know the people? You're a Phillies fan. Mets are kind of rivals. Or what about what sport? Does it matter what sport? What if you're a diehard, like Victoria, a baseball fan? Should students look at the NFL or hockey or anything? Is the goal to get a job in sports first, or is the goal to get a job with a sport you're passionate about? What do you think?
Sure. All right. A lot to cover there, but I'll do my, if I miss anything, let me know. For me, yeah, I don't think the chase the logo, not the people is something that I would have ever thought of. I'd be like, I just want to work for the best company, right? You want to tell your friends, oh, I work for X. I work with, if you don't want to say, oh, it's this really small thing, no one's ever heard of it. However, if you find yourself working for someone that sees potential in you and wants you to grow within that company, and there's a lot of success, a lot of potential there, I think that's more valuable than you being the 25th accountant or the 25th sales rep where the boss doesn't know your name. Sure, you can say, yeah, I work for the Mets. They're my favorite team. But if it's not something that, I mean, the Mets are a bad example because you know what I mean. But yeah, so I think that's my one piece of that, but definitely something that I wish I had known sooner. Luckily, I found it out at a good time. But definitely something during your job searches, take note of who you're interviewing with. Look at their career backgrounds, look at the company, what kind of track record does the company have? I think that's a big piece. So I think it comes down to the job versus career mantra, where a job is you're kind of stuck in that same role for a long period of time, or you're looking for a career where there's going to be tangible steps where you can kind of get to the light at the end of the tunnel. So that would be my answer to that portion of the question. As far as pursuing different sports, for me, I think there's pros and cons to every sport. Baseball is my favorite sport, but naturally baseball runs from April until September, which is a long season. And throughout the summer, I'm a big summer guy. I don't do anything fun in the winter. So from that perspective, it probably would make more sense for me to work in the NHL or the NBA, because then I'd be working during a time I'm not doing anything and I'd have more free time in the summer. But I think, again, it comes down to the organization. It comes down to the people. I think especially looking for that first position, I wouldn't be so keen on, I need to work in baseball, I need to work for this team. I think it's more so getting into the industry and then kind of navigating it from there when you have some tangible experience that you can reference, opposed to if you just pigeonhole yourself and I need this, and that in a job, especially a first job, you're just going to set yourself up for failure, and it's going to just end up being a frustrating thing, banging your head against the wall. Like, why can't I land that job? And just because you're looking for such a niche thing, kind of get yourself in and then go from there. And then one other talking point I think that you mentioned as well, as far as the actual role goes, I think there's a big misnomer that sales is a great foot in the door. From a recruiting perspective, that's something that I hear all the time. I'll say, well, what makes you most passionate about this position, or why do you want to get involved in sales? And a lot of times the answer I'll hear is, well, sales is a great foot in the door. I really want to ultimately work in marketing, or sales is a great foot in the door, but I want to be the GM of the Mets. So things along those lines, and don't get me wrong, I think I said the same thing. Luckily, my recruiter must be able to see past that. But I think that's a big thing, right? Like, there's this misnomer that sales is a foot in the door, and in a lot of places it is. But I can speak candidly from the Mets. we look to grow people within the sales organization. So at the end of the day, if you're telling me I would like to work in sales with the Mets, but I just want to go do this, then you're not invested in the career growth of the Mets program. You're using this as a stepping stone. So I would be hesitant using that, whether it's with the Mets or any organization, using the foot in the door term, because any employer is not necessarily looking for you to just use them as a stepping stone, which is essentially what you're saying in that phrase. I think I got a little off topic there, but hopefully that answered your question, Lisa.
That was great, and that is a very important point to make, because that is a conversation that students have frequently, especially in the sport management industry. We did have a student ask for your opinion on whether they should go to grad school and get a sport management or other degree, or get an entry-level bachelor's degree first.
Great question. That's one that I can't speak from experience, but is one that I've always considered. My mom's always asked me, like, hey, you're going to go to grad school and things along those lines. My executive director of ticket sales did go to grad school, and he said if he could go back, he most likely wouldn't have gone. That's his personal experience. I can't say that's gospel or anything like that, but I think my biggest advice from the grad school piece is try to differentiate yourself. So if you did a sport management undergrad, getting a sport management master's degree, I don't think really betters you or makes you like stand out that much more. If you did a business undergrad and a sport management master's, I think that's more powerful. Or business administration master's and a sport management major, something along those lines, I think makes a little bit more sense. I think obviously from my experience and what my understanding is from I know from people that went through the UConn programs, there's a lot of similarities between the two. Obviously in the master's program, it's far more in depth. But I think from a recruiting standpoint, I would say try and differentiate yourself or gain job experience first. But I'm no genius here, so don't take my answer as, well, Aaron said this, so I'm doing that. I don't want to hold you to it.
I think that's a fair answer, and we're really only looking for your opinion. So don't feel like you're speaking for the whole world. One of the questions is, are all the positions, and again, you're not speaking for all of MLB or all of professional sports, but by and large, are they all commission based, or is there salary base plus commission? How does it work?
Yep, great question. So it's a base plus commission, and our commission structure is untapped. So that's a big thing I enjoy about sales is I was always very competitive growing up, playing sports and comparing myself to others. So I think the great thing about sales and the great thing about the Mets program is a very healthy, competitive environment. Everyone pushes each other to be better. And it's always nice that knowing how much extra work you put in can directly translate to your bank account and what you're ultimately bringing home. So it is a base salary, and then there's an uncapped commission structure.
Great, thanks. And then another student asked, what's something you wish you knew or did as a student that would have helped you in your early career planning? So you laid out what you did as a sophomore and freshman, et cetera, very well. But is there anything you might recommend to students that maybe you didn't do and you wish you did?
I think if I could go back, I think the one thing that I would change is trying to meet more people. I mean, through my different avenues, I did meet a good amount of people in the sport management department, the sport business association, my coworkers in my different roles with the athletic department, and then just my general friends through the years. But I think with UConn, it's such a large campus. There's so many different events that take place. Like there's probably so many things I missed out on, so many people that I could have met and really hit it off with and things like that. Like that would be my biggest thing. I mean, I think that's easy to say, but you only have 4 years, and it's the best 4 years of your life. I can, as someone that's in the workforce, even working a great job with the Mets, I can tell you college is the best. But taking advantage of it as much as you can. Like the amount of times that I did the same things every weekend, I would go to the bar, I would hang out with this friend, it was just a repetitive thing. Like if I could go back, there's just so much that UConn offers all across the board on all campuses. Just try and take advantage of that more and network more, meet more people. That would be my biggest advice if I could go back.
So what kind of internships would you recommend to a student if they wanted to get a full-time job in sports in general? You mentioned some, and how hard is it? What kind of tools could they use to find it? Is it hard to break into sports? You gave your experience a little bit, but broaden that a little bit if you can.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think naturally the great thing about working in sports is that it's sports, right? Everyone loves sports, and that's why it's such a common industry for people to want to work in. So naturally, with that, there's going to be a lot of competition. So separating yourself is definitely a big thing, and being willing to kind of start at the bottom, do grunt work, and things along those lines definitely will pay off in the long run. As far as different resources, I think using your professors for different avenues, using Teamwork Online is a great resource. LinkedIn, even as just connecting with people to network and learn more about what they do and using their advice. I think those are all great ways. I think separating yourself, going to the Career Center, like I said, I promise they didn't tell me to say this stuff. If you go to the Career Center, there's a lot of great resources there, ways to separate yourself. Like the way my resume looked when I first got on campus to how it looked when I left, obviously some experiences that I added on, but was leaps and bounds differently. The verb usage, you'd be amazing how much you can really enhance a resume. You might think it's perfect, but there's always room to improve that. Um, as far as actual internships, I think if possible, if you know what you want to do, getting internships that directly apply to that. So, I mean, I didn't know that I wanted to work in sales. I landed a sales internship and then was looking for full-time sales roles. So that worked out well for me. But as much as possible, like if someone's applying for a sales role, I think sales is a little bit different. So I'll take a step back. I think sales is one that not a lot of people have experience in coming out. So unless you know you're for sure you're all in on sales, I wouldn't be as worried about that one. But for example, if you know you want to work in marketing, but all of your internships are like operations or accounting or whatever it looks like, make sure your internships line up with what you want to do. I think that's a good piece of advice. What else? I think I've missed something else in there, Lisa.
No, you covered it pretty well. It's just it's a tough industry to break into, I think, and I think to your point, the more experience you can get and using your networks, the better. I do have a
Yeah.
student
I'll,
who
say, I'll
asked
add
you.
I'll
Go
add
ahead.
one more thing on that too. If you're not already involved, if you know you want to work in sports, the Sport Business Association is a great way. Getting a chance to listen to different guest speakers, ideally in person in the future, but virtual WebEx works for the time being. But that's a great opportunity to learn it, not necessarily just network, but learn what they do. Like if someone comes in and they're talking about what their role is in ticket sales, that will give you a good indication of, do I see myself in that? Or if they say what they work in social media, do you have the tools necessary? Like that's a great way to learn what that role entails and see if that's something you can picture yourself doing. And the other thing too, to go back on my previous point, UConn has so many resources as one of the most prestigious athletic departments in the country. If you know you want to work in sports, get as involved as you possibly can on campus in different roles, whether it's unpaid or paid. That'll go a long way for you. And then if you're looking to get into sales as a whole, there's a number of different ways. We say all the time, everything is sales if you really think about it. You convincing your friend to go to a certain restaurant for dinner, like there's a sales element to that. It really is everywhere. So if you're looking to get into sales, a great way would be the UConn Giving, I believe it's called, or the UConn Foundation. They're making live sales calls essentially to different donors and things along those lines. So that's a great way to get some experience if you're looking to look into sales. And I'm sure there's a number of different opportunities on campus in that facet as well.
I'm sure you're right. AJ wants to know, he says, you don't have to mention any names, but have you had someone you consider a mentor or role model through your development in sports sales?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say Jake Winowich, who's the director of group sales, would be my biggest mentor. I don't mind throwing his name out there. But yeah, him and I have just a great relationship, both on the personal and professional side. I feel comfortable going with him with everything. He does a great job of when he can tell when something's bothering me, or he can tell that I'm frustrated with something, and hashing out those conversations. And he's someone that's been in my corner all along. I think what's most exciting about that is that he's going to go a point in his career where he's looking to potentially take on a VP role of ticket sales and services for a team. And I feel confident. I mean, I can't quote him on this, but he would be looking, if it was a similar timeline, I think the connection that you make go a long way. So if he went on to be the VP of ticket sales and services for the St. Louis Blues, I think he would look to me to be like, hey, would you like to be the director of inside sales, that kind of thing. So I think as much as possible is keeping those connections close. Another great example would be Wade Graff. He's the current VP of ticket sales and services for the Los Angeles Dodgers. he was the one that initially hired me for my internship. I worked very closely with him. He recruited me very heavily out of inside sales to come work for his team on the group sales side, opposed to some of the other departments. And I ultimately chose group sales because I saw how invested Wade was in me, whereas I didn't necessarily see that same side on the other departments. And obviously when Wade left, I was upset about it, but him and I are still in touch to this day. And him being the VP of the Dodgers, when he left the Mets for that role, Patrick Simon, who is another good mentor of mine, was a member of the group sales team and the management training program, as I currently am. He took him with him, and he's now the director of inside sales with the Dodgers. So I would say mentors are huge. The biggest thing is not to lose touch with those. Like, I could even do a better job with Wade. Him and I probably connect maybe once every 3 or 4 months, but try as much as possible to have like a monthly interaction, especially in a college, when you're in college. Even just shooting somebody an email once in a while that you make a good connection with, like, hey, I saw this article, I thought of you, just to keep your name top of mind. So when those internship opportunities come around, those job opportunities, you're a name that they think of. So obviously you don't want to be too overbearing, but an occasional LinkedIn message, an occasional email, setting up a monthly or bi-monthly phone call, that all goes really a long way from a mentor perspective.
Aaron, so that is an excellent point, and you can't state that strongly enough, to keep in touch with those people that you considered mentors when you worked side by side, and then they've moved on. Stay in touch with them. That you can't state that strongly enough. So thanks for making that point. What about jumping from one pro sport to another? Does that happen? Do you feel like you're now, I don't want to use the word stuck, but maybe are you going to stay with baseball, and we're not going to hold you to it, and we're not going to tell the Mets what you said, but
I hope this was being recorded. I don't know.
Yeah, it is being recorded, but we're hoping that you, we're wondering, do you think that this experience is transferable to another professional sport or to another team? What do you thought?
Yeah, great question. I think for sure. I think especially in the sports sales role, the industry is so small. Just for example, when I went to the Washington, D.C. Monumental Sales Workshop back in January, my colleague that I went with, his name is Zach Johnston. He's our director of new business development. He's been in the industry now for maybe 8 years or so. He knew every single person at this conference, seemed like, from DC United to the Atlanta Hawks to so the sport sales industry in particular is very small. I think you see that all the time, people going from sport to sport or team to team when it makes sense for them career-wise. I think I wouldn't go to another team in another facet, most likely, and most likely would stay on the sales track. But as far as the actual sport goes, for example, Sam Barlow was in our management training program. He recently left and became the director of inside sales with the Wizards. Derek Anderson was a member of our management training program with the Mets. He went on to be the director of inside sales with the Los Angeles Clippers. So there definitely is some parallels. So it's not necessarily just one sport all the way through.
I'm hearing a lot of transferable skills and a lot of opportunity for advancement, movement, etc. So I love that. I don't see any other questions, so I'm going to throw another one out to you. For students interested in talking to you further, maybe they don't want to be so public or want to be online or can't think of a question now, how can they learn from you? LinkedIn, Husky Mentor Network, what's the best way to contact you? And are you willing to fellow Huskies?
Of course, I wouldn't, not for every university, but for UConn, I'm always willing to give back. No, I'm just joking. I'm happy to be a resource for you guys. LinkedIn's probably the best way to connect with me. I did just join the Husky Mentor Network, so I'm not too familiar with that platform yet, but I know Lisa's going to get me up to speed with that. So by all means, reach out to me on whichever you're more comfortable with. I'll always get back to you within 48 hours or so, and I'll be happy to set up a time to talk, or if it's just a one-off question or something like that, we can chat back and forth. But I'm definitely happy to be there for all you guys, and hopefully provide any insight that I can.
Aaron, is there anything that I've forgotten to ask you, or that you would love to leave as a parting thought for students? I mean, I heard so many great points for them to keep in mind. Students have reiterated on their comments about chase the people, not the logo. I love that. We're probably going to steal that and use it in the future. But because we talk a lot to students, whether they're going into sports or not, about company culture. You should research corporate culture. Is there a fit? Do you fit? So, how do you figure out that fit? And it sounds like you've sort of, and I don't want to say mastered, because nobody ever masters anything like that,
That's giving me too much
figured.
credit.
Yeah, but you figured it out. So if you can at least, share with us, how did you figure it out, or how could students kind of figure it out? What kind of parting thoughts do you have for us?
Sure. As far as company culture goes, I will caution from a general interview question. We always joke about it. We get it all the time. It's like at the end of an interview, piece of advice. I know this is kind of off topic, but piece of advice before you go into an interview, make sure you have a list of like thought out questions. There's nothing more obvious than when I say, all right, I'm going to flip it over to you. What questions do you have for me? And someone says, what's a typical day like? Which that one's okay. But the second question is always, what's the company culture like? Like those two things to me makes it just seem like you weren't prepared for the question, you just kind of asked it. So that's one thing I would challenge you. If you have an interview you're going into, do some research prior, whether it's on the company, see what you can find on LinkedIn. You see who's actually interviewing you, a little bit about their career path. Hey, I saw you went to Rutgers. Tell me a little bit more about your experience there. What was the biggest takeaway you had from your sport management degree, or things along those lines. Put a little more thought into that, I would challenge. But as far as company culture goes, I think it's tough to seek that out. I mean, I think LinkedIn is a great way to, you can kind of get a peek behind the curtains of different things that organizations are doing. I know with the Mets, like we post up there all the time of different sales contests or different fun things that we have going on. So I think that's a way you can kind of get a peek behind the curtain, as well as a company website as well. But I think really ultimately the best way to see a company culture is to live it and actually see what that's like. And obviously that ultimately entails either landing an in-person interview where you can kind of see a little bit, or that's actually landing the position itself. But to describe the Mets culture a little bit, it's a ton of fun. We have standing desks, so people are constantly on their feet. It's an open office space, so it's really easy to interact with your peers. And we have TVs all throughout that puts on the revenue numbers for the day, the hustle numbers, how many phone calls, how many appointments set, things like that. When you do make a sale, everybody has a walk-up song that plays on the TV and says what the sale was. So keeps things light. It's a lot of fun, and we do always do a couple of different company-wide events. Great example right now, I think, is the time where a company culture can be really curtailed quite a bit. You're not having that daily interaction with your peers. You kind of feel isolated working from home in your childhood bedroom. But what we've been doing with, they've challenged the management and training program to do is kind of set up different virtual things. So last night we had a virtual trivia that one of my peers put on. I put together an MLB The Show tournament. We got a wine Wednesday coming up next week. We got a cooking class. So just trying to do fun ways. We're very used to interacting with all of each other every single day. So this is an exciting time to, kind of take a step back and still trying to get creative to find ways to kind of keep up morale and company culture from that standpoint. But I think I kind of used my sales technique and danced around your question a little bit. I don't know the finite answer, but there's a little insight there.
I think that's great. You just answered that question of how can somebody find out a corporate culture, right? You just answered it right there, right? Cool. All the things you just said, for an example, that tells everybody listening what a great culture you have in your office and what the Mets is, if that's a fit, right? One more question. No, I'm not going to say one more because there might be more. But a question that comes to mind is so we all know, or we think we know, it's really hard to get a job in sports. What other job do you think? We have a student who mentions they work at Staples in sales, which they can see the transferable skills, which is terrific. What kinds of jobs like that would you say would be helpful while they still seek a job in sales? So I can't land that job in sales yet. What can I do to make myself more marketable and more valuable for that sports job?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as much as you can, I think reading is a great way, reading different sales articles. LinkedIn's a great way to find a number of those, but that's a great way to at least learn transferable sales skills and kind of learn how to talk the language. You quickly learn once you start in sales that there's a lot of cliches and things along those lines, but being able to speak the language and things along those lines will kind of separate yourself. So that's one good way. And like I said before, like sales is everywhere. Everything you do is sales in some way, whether it is sales at Staples, like again, it doesn't really matter. There's a lot of transferable skills there. I would say a big thing too would be one thing I found myself doing, like it's really important in sales to always ask open-ended questions. So never say, hey, do you like this? Because you can get the yes or no. You say things like, tell me more about your experience with X. So that would be one thing, I guess, from interview advice as well. Always make sure your questions are open-ended. But I find myself now when I'm texting my friends in the most casual thing possible, I'll be texting open-ended questions versus closed-ended questions. So little things like that, like hold yourself accountable to things, things that you'll find on LinkedIn that are different sales practices. Another great way too is what I'd recommend, if you could find an accountability partner, which with UConn and being the network that we have and how many different students there are, find someone that has similar career aspirations as you that also wants to get into sales, and role play. Like, right, say, I'm working for XYZ company. I have this product. This is your needs. And let's role play that out and see what that looks like, and put yourself in the scenario and see what that would look like, and see what your comfort levels are and give each other feedback. I think that's another good way to practice. And that's something we preach all the time, is finding an accountability partner, and just trying to push each other to be better.
That's awesome, Aaron. I really appreciate that. And I think our students do too. I've gotten a bunch of smiley face comments in the chat and the questions and answers. So that's all I have for you. Christina, I don't know if you have anything. I really want to thank you for being responsive to my personal questions, but and for your time and for being such a proud Husky. We all appreciate that. I'm a Husky too, and appreciate when a Husky is willing to help another Husky.
Absolutely.
Yes, this was great. Thank you, Aaron, for sharing your insights. I know the students truly appreciated what you had to say today. And thank you for connecting with us virtually. So just to reiterate, a way that the students can connect with you after this call is LinkedIn, and you're going to be part of our Husky Mentor Network.
That is correct. Yep. So LinkedIn's a great asset. Feel free to reach out to me, connect with me after this. Even if you don't have a direct question at this moment, or you don't want to set up a call or anything, feel free to connect with me. Never know, a good time down the road. You can always reference, hey, I was a part of the virtual UConn call during the COVID-19 pandemic, and I'll remember that right away. So I'm happy to be a resource for all you guys, answer your questions, and hopefully put you guys on the path to where you want to go.